So when you're starting up a business as a filmmaker or any entrepreneurial kind of endeavor, there's always a lot of concerns and questions. Will I be able to find clients? Will I be able to make money? Am I going to be able to pay my bills? Those are all questions and concerns I had when I was starting up my business back in 2014. So I came up with a list of what I think are the top 6 mistakes new filmmakers make when they're starting up their business, and a few tips on how to avoid them. The first one is not focusing on one specific job. When we're starting up this business, we want to be a jack of all trades. We want to be the director, the producer, the writer, the cinematographer, the sound person, the editor. But realistically, it's very tough to do all those things, especially when you're just starting out. So I would recommend picking one of those things and hone your skills and try to find clients for that one job first. So for example, when I was starting up my business, I focused on editing. I thought that would be my best way into the business to start working for multiple clients, be able to work from home or from their studio, meet new people, meet new collaborators, and use them as a way to springboard into other positions. So some of my clients that I was doing editing for, I started producing for them as well. I poked them and prodded them and said, hey, I also produce and direct. I can execute your vision because I know what you're looking for in post-production now. So then they would take a gamble on me and start hiring me as a producer and a director, and it snowballed from there. Now I'm doing editing, producing, directing for multiple clients, but it all started because I focused on one position first and tried to find clients using editing initially. The second is not collaborating with others. Filmmaking is a very collaborative medium. It takes a whole bunch of people to put together a project. They say the best director is someone who surrounds himself with people that are better than them at their jobs. So a good director is going to surround himself with a good cinematographer, a good editor, a good producer, a good art director, a good sound person. They're going to use other people's talents to help execute their vision rather than try and do it themselves and spread themselves thin. And action. Because that's what happens when you try to take on all the roles at once. You do all the jobs mediocre instead of doing one job really great. So if you collaborate with others, you're gonna learn to communicate better, you're not gonna be spread thin, and you're gonna end up with better projects in the end. So the third mistake, and the one we probably can all relate to the most, is overspending on gear. We all have gear acquisition syndrome. We all fetishize the newest cameras, the newest lenses, the newest lights. We wanna buy it all. And I know myself, I have spent a lot of money on things that I only used once or didn't really end up using professionally, and now it just sits on my shelf, or I've sold it. For example, I bought a little mini jib. I think we've used it on one project in the 2 years I owned it. It was like $700 too. So it wasn't cheap or a little battery or something. That was just several $100s that I spent and we've used on one project. So I've definitely not profited off that piece of gear. And I think that's something that with the constant marketing and watching YouTube videos and seeing other people with the newest gear, it makes us really want to get in there and buy that, but you don't need to. You can make do with much more affordable gear or gear you already own, rather than going out and spending all your money on new gear just for the sake of having it. Remember, the best camera is not the most expensive one, but it's the one you master. Now, I know you might be saying hey, Mike, that's easy for you to say. You own a Canon C300 Mark II, but that took me 5 years of doing this professionally before I decided to pull the trigger on this, and I split it with somebody, so it's not even entirely mine. You can check out my other video about the Canon T2i that I did a little while ago, about whether or not you can get good cinematic images out of a 9-year-old DSLR. I'm gonna link it above or below or wherever it goes. So use the gear you've already got, or borrow gear from somebody who has some, or rent it if the client requires it. Don't go out and spend all your money on top of the line gear. You're not gonna start your career as a cinematographer by buying an Arri Alexa. It's not going to be a wise financial decision. And speaking of financial decisions, that leads me to the fourth mistake, and that is not saving and investing money. You should start saving and investing money as soon as possible. As soon as you have some cash, start investing it. Take a portion of every paycheck from a client or from your day job. Take that, save it, and invest it. If you start investing younger, you have the benefit of compounded interest. You can start generating interest on money that you put away into the markets long term. If you invest $1 when you're 20, it'll end up being about $30 if compounded annually at 8% interest by the time you are retired or 65 years old. But if you invest that same dollar at 30, it'll only be worth about half that, about $16. If you can put away 25% of every paycheck, then you will end up with so much more money by the time you are retired or getting married or wanting to buy a house. I think the problem is that while yes, there is an income problem with a lot of people, not just filmmakers, but everybody across the board, one of the biggest problems we have is spending. So if you don't go out and buy that expensive camera and you can get by using the gear you have, and instead take the money you saved up and invest it into the markets or invest it into a high interest savings account, then you're gonna benefit long-term financially. It's gonna help you in the long run because, you know, as self-employed people or just people in general, we don't get pensions nowadays. We're screwed. We got to save for our future. So start saving now, start saving young, because you will generate so much more money by the time you're retired if you put away that money now as you are in your 20s or even your 30s. The longer you can save that money, the more it'll end up being worth in the end. And how do you get that money? Well, you say yes to everything. Every new opportunity that comes your way when you're starting out your business, you should say yes to, because I think the fifth mistake is that people don't say yes to every opportunity. I almost said no to what ended up being the biggest opportunity of my career so far. I was called last minute to go in and edit for a sports network in Toronto, and I almost said no because I never watched sports and I wasn't that interested in it. Luckily, something in the back of my brain said, like, go do it, you idiot. Because of that phone call, I met so many people. I ended up producing content for that network long term. I've traveled all across North America working for them. It ended up being a huge opportunity that I almost said no to. And if I said no that night, I don't know what my life would be like right now. And I had no idea at the time that that phone call would change the trajectory of my career. But that's why you got to say yes, especially when you're starting out. The worst case scenario is you go in for a day, they never call you back. To me, the pros definitely outweigh the cons in that scenario. If you go in and do a good job, you might meet somebody who could down the road give you a shout. They might refer you to somebody else. It can start a snowball effect that ends up earning you money later on down the road that you never even thought was possible. So say yes to every opportunity. And the final mistake that I think new filmmakers make when they're starting their career is they set their expectations too high and aren't realistic. When I was applying for film school, I thought that I would get in, I would graduate, and then I would start making feature films. And that is just not realistic at all. I mean, I got rejected from film school 3 times before I finally got accepted. When I graduated, I had no money, and there was definitely nobody offering me a feature film to direct. I had to hit the pavement and start my business and start taking on commercial clients and corporate clients and, you know, projects that maybe I wasn't totally in love with, but I knew could benefit me either financially or professionally down the line. So have that expectation that you're probably not gonna direct a feature film before you turn 30 or potentially even 40. Very few people actually do. You will likely have to find corporate clients. You'll have to work on commercials. You have to work on projects that maybe, you know, your heart and soul aren't necessarily into, but that's what you do to survive. And by doing those things, you can practice your skills, generate revenue, and potentially build a business that down the road will let you work on the projects you want to do and that you are passionate about. So anyway, those are the 6 biggest mistakes I think new filmmakers make when they're starting up their business. If you feel like you learned something, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, do all the things YouTubers tell you to do, and I will see you in the next video.